All right. So today, hopefully you were expected to talk about collaboration a little bit. Again, we just started the recording, so this is a virtual professional development workshop through the SHAPE initiative, training and talent development program. And we're going to talk a little bit about collaborations, the benefits and the challenges. One of the things that I found really interesting when I was researching this topic is that it's not exactly what we think of when we use the hype or buzzword collaboration. I think collaboration is talked about a lot and it kind of operates as this buzzword. So that's something that we're going to dive into today and see how awesome it is and how challenging it can be, and that there needs to be some kind of skills and tips and tricks with that, which we'll end the workshop with. So per usual, we have introduced everyone to Zoom. I've seen all these names before, which makes me very happy. So you should be good and oriented by now. We are going to use Mentimeter. So if you want to get on that secondary device or that secondary window on your phone or your tablet or your computer, go to menti.com. And the code, if I can get it down, is 229105. 229105. I like to submit it and to see what you all see on yours too. Okay, cool. So hopefully if you are in, it should look something like that. You'll see the PowerPoint images too. And we are, in true Rachel fashion, gonna do a test question. I didn't make this one up, but I was feeling my spring today. So I want to see what preference you have for each of the seasons. So I'm not going to make you choose a favorite, but I want you to see who, I like whoever strongly and boldly said like, woo, we're seeing a trend. So go ahead and say what your preferences for the seasons are. Where are you falling with loving it or hating it of each of the seasons? And I think being at least part of the time in Colorado, right? We're all connected into Colorado State University. So even if this isn't our home initially, we're familiar at least with some of these seasons, Colorado being one of those places in the world that has some distinct seasons, which is pretty cool. Sometimes it looks like winter in May, but that's another thing. So awesome. I love what it's doing. It tracks the different responses, but kind of like averages out. So some people feel really strongly, and then you can see that it's all over the board. And I really do think that this is also about how we look at them too, and knowing that there are different perspectives out there. There is right or wrong, right? We've talked about critical thinking in some of the real workshops. There's just different perspectives in how you see it and what your experiences might be that. So again, the code for Mentimeter, if you weren't able to, is 2291, I can't see it, 229105. Awesome. Cool. Okay, so we're going to jump in. Today's collaboration. Is it a buzzword? We're going to understand the differences between a couple C words when we're talking about communication and teamwork. Look at those benefits, challenges, see it in action. We're going to watch some of those clips, which hopefully brings some smile to our faces as well. Assess when it's needed, and then steps to get there is how we will wrap up our time together. So first of all, I do want to go over a couple of definitions, right? If we were in a group, in a room together, I'd like have you read them out. I'll do that for you on this, and we'll keep having the chat go in the Mentimeter. But where we're living today is in collaboration. And I've underlined a couple of the highlighted words that collaboration is working together to create something new. That's important. It's in support of a shared vision that's collective and bought into and has ownership with multiple people. Because the key points are that it is not through individual effort, that multiple people are needed, that something is new and created, and it's a shared vision. I actually have used the words coordination and cooperation instead of collaboration, or maybe I should have used those words when I thought I was talking about collaboration. So coordination, the distinction is that it's sharing information and resources so that each party can accomplish their part in support of a mutual objective. So I think in terms of this, I think of like a group project where you come together, you kind of know where you need to go, you kind of divide and tackle it, right? You're like, okay, you do this, you do this, you do this, we'll come back together and see what our product is, right? So that's coordinating resources and sharing information for that mutual objective. Cooperation differs just a little bit in that it's in these networks where individuals exchange relevant information, they share with each other and have relationships with one another, and where they share resources in support of each other's goal. But Adam's goal might look different than Tyra's goal, but that they can work together to help share those resources and move toward those goals together. So that's cooperation, rather than a shared goal. Something new may be achieved as a result, but it arises from the individual, not the collective team effort. Does that kind of make sense, those three differences? I think it's helpful because, you know, we talk a lot about like, oh, the best is collaboration. And just as there's a difference in distinction between dialogue, debate, and discussion, that those are nuanced too in terms of different communications, that there's an objective for each one. Collaboration is really utilized when you want to create something new. So this might be when a team is coming together for the first time and we don't know what's possible. I think a lot about this with leadership and innovation, maybe the space project, or you know, what is that new innovation or something new we can do together? I see Google as being a collaborative entity, which has some of the aspects that we're going to talk about when we think about, okay, so what actually is collaboration and what's needed to get there? Because it's not easy and it takes some time. So, they can do this. All three of these are aspects of teamwork. So when we talk about teamwork, I thought about a lot of places we could go with this. I was like, well, maybe we should overview Tuckman's group development model and all of this. And then I'm like, Emily, we've only got 40 to 45 minutes. We need to focus in, right? And so all of these are aspects that can be found in a team. I actually think that offices in CSU can operate really cooperatively, right? That they have and share resources, but that each of their goals are a little bit different, ultimately, hopefully, towards the betterment and support of students and student learning and achievement. But how they do that might look a little different. The collaboration comes when something new can be, right? So this upcoming fall might provide some challenges for us. Hopefully we'll be back together. Hopefully we'll be back in physical, and we have the opportunity to access how do we do these things differently and create something new, and it's going to take some collaboration to be able to do this. So again, to reiterate, because right, if you drive it home, you kind of keep remembering it, aspects of collaboration are that it's a shared goal. That vision is co-created. It can't be done by individuals, and then the outcome is something new. You like that ribbon dancer? I'm not quite sure. That was self-generated by PowerPoint. Thank you very much, Microsoft.
I used to do that, not gonna lie.
Nice. See? Okay, get back on those Mentimeters, and I want to hear from you. Similarly, how I told a story of how I misuse the word collaboration, now that you know a little bit about it, have there been times that you've been asked to collaborate, but it wasn't possible? Or maybe they meant something else. Or maybe the outcome was already established and it's like, we'll just collaborate on that and get it done, right? So I want you to think about a time, you know, maybe in a community that's different, maybe on a staff in which you work with, you know, maybe your supervisors at student resolution are like, can you collaborate on this project? But they already had the goal in mind of what they already wanted you to do, right? So now, have there been times that you've been asked to collaborate, but it wasn't possible? Or they were asking for something else? Yes, collaboration is my job description, but the goal of that partnership was predetermined. Good distinction, right? So hopefully creating things new is within the band and wheelhouse of the position, but that it's predetermined by other folks, right? That's awesome. Working on a school project when there was a predetermined goal. We just had to work together to get there. Yep, been there. We've all had different perspectives, and while some were open-minded to a new idea, others were stubborn and didn't want to cooperate. Oh man. all the time. Oh, good. So yeah, I was a communication major and we talked a lot about group projects, and there's always, or some, maybe, hopefully not always, but oftentimes there's that person in a group project where something might be a barrier to them like producing or providing contribution. And they actually have a term for that. It's called a social loafer. It's one of the few things that I remember from my second year communication class. Asked to collaborate working at a gym. The boss didn't really organize us towards the same goal. It was essentially a bunch of people working in silos. And that's frustrating, right? You're kind of hoping for, expecting something, and then the output or the support for that is different and not there. I'm in a group project right now where we just need to work individually. And right now, sometimes that's all that needs to be. And that's a really good distinction of collaboration. True collaboration may be more difficult or differently oriented right now as we're all working physically distanced from each other and virtually, right? Thanks for all those great inputs. So I want to watch a clip on collaboration. And I think this is a really interesting one. If you are familiar with the actor in the center, it's a clip from the Big Bang Theory. And I think what's interesting about this is that I see aspects of it, and I also think that it could be done a little differently or maybe even better. What I want you to focus on, when the clip's only about 1.5 minutes, I want you to look at the behaviors of each character. I'll give you some background also. These are folks who have known each other for a long time too. So does that factor in? Does it not? Does it make it more easy, difficult, etc.? I am going to stop sharing to make sure, stop. That's Stella Luna. Mama J is coming home from a walk, so she's very excited. Okay, I'm going to full screen this, share, computer sound, and here we go. Okay.
The problem appears to be unsolvable. Maybe we could run some computer simulations.
There are too many variables. It would take forever.
We've got to be missing something. Okay, let's start again. The movie is playing here at 7:20, here at 7:40, here at 8:10, and here at 8:45.
All right, these theaters have to be eliminated.
Why? They're state-of-the-art, digital projection, 20-channel surround sound.
Yes, but they have no icy machines. Despite my aggressive letter writing campaign, I might add.
What about the multiplex here? The seats are terrific.
They have Twizzlers instead of red vines. No amount of lumbar support can compensate for that.
Well, it's going to take at least an hour to eat, and I don't see a Sheldon-approved restaurant proximate to a Sheldon-approved theater.
We could eat after the movie.
Unacceptable. The delay would result in tomorrow morning's bowel movement occurring at work.
Hang on. There's a 7-Eleven here. We smuggle Slurpees, which are essentially ices, in under our coats after having a pleasant meal either here, or here.
Wow. I don't see how we missed that.
Excuse me, in what universe are Slurpees ices?
That's how we missed it.
Sheldon, would you be prepared on a non-presidential basis to create an emergency ad hoc Slurpee icy equivalency?
Oh, Leonard, you know I can't do that.
Okay, I guess we only have one option.
Yep, I don't see any way around it.
Bye, Sheldon.
See ya.
Later, dude.
They're right, it was the only option.
Okay, so as you can see, again, if you're familiar or not with the Big Bang Theory, the problem at hand was, right, how do they get fed? Where's the Slurpee machine, or icy in this case, and how can they get to their movie, right? Is it a vision that has never been done before? It was an unsolvable problem, potentially. So I want you to go back to Mentimeter, and in this word bubble that we're gonna create, what behaviors or characteristics did you see? So remember, when you're answering this, that I want you to think about the longevity of the folks that it seemed like it was an established group already. How was their communication? Where were their difficulties? Things of that nature. What behaviors or characteristics did you see? Bueller. Awesome. Okay. Care, cooperation, some stubbornness, definitely stubbornness came through. You can see a little bit of that social loafer as I saw. Not a lot of contributions, but there was a certain amount of candidness, right? Of honesty, of saying, that's not going to work for me. Maybe that would work. And that actually is a characteristic that's kind of needed. And we'll see that in a bit. Negotiating, disagreements, compromise, problem-solving alternatives. There's some good question asking, like, would you be, in this instance, willing to concede ices and Slurpees, blah, 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 right? All of these, the brainstorming and directness and care, this is great. So yeah, all of those were kind of seen. And ultimately why I found it as an imperfect example of this is that they left Sheldon. They were like, okay, how we're gonna get to this shared vision together is not. And is that a tough choice that some groups might have to make? Potentially, right? If you're gathering and creating and there's willingness to share this vision together, and if it's being creating barriers by someone or something, there sometimes needs to be tough decisions made. Okay. So, excuse me. Some of the collaboration benefits, again, there are those three characteristics, right? Something new is created, a new pathway, a new problem solved, a new vision, a new deliverable. It can't be done alone. That people from different skills and different backgrounds and different perspectives come together to share about, you know, how this can be done. And the, oh gosh, I forgot the third one. What's the third one? Shared perspective. Rachel's looking back for me. Anyone? Extra points. Ownership, options. Now I'm just frustrated. Sorry, y'all. Hold on. Hold, please. Oh, I think I did. Yeah, can't be done by individuals, and the outcome is something new, right? So it has to be done by folks together. And the outcome is something new with that shared vision. So the outcome, the vision, and the multiple people nature. So now I have to get back to my. Great. So the benefits of collaboration with these three different aspects is that the outcome is often more than could be predicted, right? I've been in places where the ideas are just flowing and they're jiving and it's like, what about this? What about this? Kind of that space that there's no bad idea, even that sometimes you're like, I don't know how that could work. But having an idea of possibility, that outcome is often more than could be predicted, right? When we come to with that's impossible attitude, sometimes we need those folks who bring in maybe some reality, some perspective, some resources of like, okay, how are we going to do that? Maybe asking some questions. But when you stay in that place of possibility and folks feel uninhibited to hold themselves back, that they don't need to withhold themselves to be trusted in that, that's really positive and incredibly, yeah, it makes possibilities possible. That shared ownership creates this buy-in, right? I know that I want to be part of teams and initiatives where I feel valued, I feel welcomed and affirmed, that ownership is part mine too. But there are other times when I take a back seat and I might collaborate just my skills. If you were with us in the sphere of influence and those different behaviors, sometimes you're more of in a following role, right? Sometimes you're listening, you're asking questions, you're doing your collaboration. And then other times you're very actively engaged in it and you're kind of inside this possibility sphere and bubble, that shared ownership, because that's often enjoyable, right? There's fun within that, and that all created and are committed to the vision. So the vision is co-created by the group of people who are committed to that. So that ownership is fun, and the outcome is often really predictable. Now, to be that good, you have to give a lot to that potentially, right? That's why it's not for every problem at hand. That there are challenges. It takes time, a lot of time. It takes trust, and trust oftentimes isn't built overnight, right? We just did a situational leadership workshop with the real experience where competence and character combine to create this consistency of trust that you can't necessarily, like Rachel and I have been working together for a long time. And so there's a shared, I don't want to speak out of turn, Rachel, but there's a shared understanding of what each of us can bring. And we know each other's limitations and boundaries and skills and development, right? So that trust takes time to build. It requires dissent and conflict. Not very many people dive deep into conflict first, but that is that questioning, that I'm not sure about that. Can we pause and take a check to see if this could work better a different way? It's asking for that feedback and creating dissent, right? Creating a space that's safe for dissent to say, we need to see if we need to go in a different direction. Release and control can be really hard for folks. And collaboration takes and requires a releasing of control. It can't just be one person like blaring ahead saying, this is the way we're going to do it. This is my vision. We need to do it. Oftentimes, it's helpful when there are folks who have the beginnings or the parts of a vision that can be built on, right? Sometimes that energy and that inertia needs to be built so that other people can buy into it and can create and commit to that vision. But that takes some releasing of control from the folks who think that they have the outcome already in mind. If I already have the outcome in mind, that doesn't mean that it's more than it could be predicted, right? So those are some benefits and challenges. I also put that little teaser there, that question of, could those also be benefits, right? Challenges aren't bad. Challenges require different resources and time to consider it, but arguably taking time, building trust, offering spaces where there can be dissent and conflict and releasing control are really important skills within a leadership context or a group context to cultivate. So that's why I would argue that they're also benefits. That might be my glass half full perspective too. Okay, so we're gonna get into some case studies so you can answer this, but I also want to open it up for any questions. Are there questions that you wanna come off mute? Are there responses? Are there anything? You can use the chat bar too. Rachel's helping us moderate that. So know that you're welcome to ask questions or to kind of provide insight and dialogue in how you've seen this, but we're gonna do a couple case studies. So I want you to go back to your Menti, and we have 4 different scenarios, mini scenarios, M-I-N-I, mini scenarios. And I want you to say if this is collaboration or not. So a group project with a paper due on the effects of the Great Depression on Sweden's economy. Collaboration, yes, no, or need more information. Awesome. Great. All right. So we have some different perspectives here, right? We have, I need more information, and possibly that could be true, right? We know that maybe if there was an effect on Sweden's economy that's never been uncovered before, that you're creating something new or you're working on a collaborative dissertation, I think those would be the best things personally. If you could get a PhD collaboratively, that's just another offshoot and tangent. But if you were creating something totally new, then maybe it would be collaboration. Maybe you would need more information. With the dynamics and the aspects that we know about that it's a paper due in a group context on the effects of the Great Depression of Sweden's economy, that was in the past, right? And so if it's not creating something new, you might be coordinating efforts, right? You might be coming together and utilizing each other's resource towards that mutually shared vision, but it might not be creating something new. So that's where it misses potentially the collaborative effect. Nice job. Okay, next one, out. A staff who have been working together, who believe in the ability and skills to complement each other, are asked to create a new campaign. This was longer written, but Menti wouldn't let me use any more than 140 characters. Yes, yes, 3 yeses, 3 no's, or need more information. 6 folks have responded, 1 more. All right, we have consensus. What gave it away? Anyone? Anyone?
The word new.
The word new, and it was bolded too, right? It was kind of cheated, right? So yes, absolutely. It was a group that came together that had maybe some established trust. They knew and believed in that ability and skills to complement each other, and they were asked to a new campaign. Nice job. All right, 3, a team of basketball players working to win a game. Collaboration? Yes, no, need more information. Interesting. All right, 7 of you responded. What I love about this is I saw some shifts, right? And what I love about Menti is it's totally anonymous. I have no idea who like chose which one, but there were some yeses and there was some movement around that yeses, right? And then there was 1 no, and then there was 2, and then there was 3, right? The thing about this one, in my mind as I was creating it, is that there has to be a lot of cooperation and coordination for a team, right? Oftentimes there's a coach, but is there anything new here, right? They're going towards the goal of winning the game. Now, unless the game is like some, you know, big tournament that's never been done before, arguably maybe there's that. But as we see it now, there's cooperation and coordination, but maybe not collaboration. Does that kind of make sense for folks? Tell us in the chat if it doesn't. The next one, and the last and final case study, is kind of going to drive it home. A team of basketball players who builds trust and vision to go beyond the court to create something new. Collaboration. So in my mind, I'm thinking about like groups that come together who work on a philanthropic effort of that, you know, each of them are really passionate about, right? Who are working together in, you know, they've known each other for a while and things like that. Awesome. Okay. So we've got 7. There might be an 8th out there. But yes, so that building something new that can't be done individually, where the outcome is sometimes greater than could ever be imagined, right? So those 3 characteristics again, coming full swing in that. Thanks for those 4 mini case studies. Okay, so we're going to start getting into, okay, these different aspects. I'm going to drive it home one more time, and then we're going to end up with how can you work towards collaborative relationships in whatever team contexts you're in. So I'm going to go to this here, possibly.
We've all had times when group work failed. People missed deadlines, failed to communicate, and didn't learn from mistakes. But chances are you've also been part of a team when you accomplished something epic together that you could have never done on your own. So what makes this creative collaboration work effectively? Well, here are 7 ideas. Number 1, ownership. Members need to be empowered from the start. Here they can solve problems, generate ideas, and design systems that lead to success. Number 2, dependability. Creative collaboration requires members to hit their deadlines and develop creative endurance. Number 3, trust. When members trust one another, they work interdependently. Here they genuinely listen to one another and assume the best in each other. Over time, they become transparent and even vulnerable. Number 4, structure. The structure should be loose and flexible, but you need to have structure in creative collaboration. It needs to exist. This is why I love design thinking. It's a flexible framework for getting the most out of the entire creative process. Number 5, a shared vision. I'm not referring here to vision statements that you put on a wall or slap onto a website. I'm thinking more in terms of a sense of direction. It's a shared desire, a goal that you're aiming for, and a picture of what you will produce. Number 6, fun. The best collaborative groups I've been a part of are the ones where you want to be together. They laugh, they play together, and this can actually boost both convergent and divergent thinking. Number 7, candor. This is one of the big takeaways from Creativity Inc., a book by one of the co-founders of Pixar. It's the idea that groups need to be honest about what's working and what's failing. And this honesty allows you to adjust and iterate and ultimately create something awesome.
Okay. So why I like that resource so much is that it goes again pretty quickly through these seven these 7 keys to creative collaboration. It drives home what we've talked about of creating something new with multiple people with a shared vision, right? Those 3 aspects and these 7 ways to get there. But that's like easier said than done, right? I want to spend some time, and while we're talking about these 7 components of collaboration, I want you to think about, have there been teams that you've been part of? Maybe they don't fit all of these criteria or characteristics, but I know that there was a pretty strong differentiation between when I was just doing work to get work done to then feeling like I was part of something, right? I think we see that a lot as we move and progress through our schooling experiences, right? Kind of in middle school, high school, you're just doing stuff to get things done. You're reading the books, you're doing the reports, you're doing the science projects, but everywhere, like, you kind of know the science projects are going to come out in a certain way. Then you go to college and you're doing those biology experiments, and you have to write that report, and you have to have that hypothesis, and you have to do this. It still might be done. Then if you make choices to go to grad school, maybe get your PhD, you're creating something new. You're asking those questions. What is that next question? What's that possibility? And needing to collaborate. So it's okay for some of you if you're like, I don't know if I've been part of a collaborative team that's truly produced and provided something new. We want to prime those pumps and those skills for you to look and for you to build possibility of the staffs and teams and groups that you're a part of to potentially be collaborative and say, what are our possibilities, right? So I want you to think about, because I'd love to hear from 2 or 3 of you after we talk about these, of times that you've been part of ones that might have some of these dynamics. So that shared ownership we've talked about. Accountability and dependability. Man, if I hear consistent feedback around the problems with group work, it's, we establish these deadlines and people aren't sticking to them, and it's frustrating because they're not getting their work done and I just don't know what to do. Creating a structure of accountability beforehand, right? Creating those expectations. I would also put expectations within accountability and dependability. When you start something new, when you take the time to build those expectations together, you've all agreed on them. So it's easier then to go back and say, hey, I thought we all agreed on this. Was I mistaken? Is there something else we can do? It provides something to go back to. When you take the time at the beginning of something to say, the beginning of the year, you're with your staff and you're like, okay, well, what are the expectations around what we wear at work when we come in, our group project autonomy, things like that, then you have an understanding, right? Over time, you build that trust. We've talked about that trust and that needing time to build that. That doesn't just come overnight. And some people trust really easily, right? That structure can help build that trust, and the structure can be accountable. One of the things that I really like in the video is it talks about being loose and flexible enough to evolve, because when you're creating new things, you don't know where it will go. And so if you have a strict and rigid structure that only allows for you to do this, then that doesn't create this container of possibility to create something new, right? But it has enough of the structure to say, okay, well, we're going to check in once a week just to see about our progress. I know I'm accountable to people and meetings. If I didn't have you all that were holding me accountable to have a workshop done at 2 p.m. on a Tuesday, I guarantee it would look different at least, right? I feel very accountable to you all, right? But there's a structure and you've come to understand. The shared vision we talked about, having fun together, isn't always required. And that ease that kind of comes when you're not walking on eggshells, that leaning into the possibilities of people enjoying each other, again, isn't required, but it can benefit the synergy and energy of a team working together. It also provides those shared experiences so that when there is the need for candor, for honesty, for saying, I know everyone wants to move forward, I just want us to pause. Can we just check in real quick? That will be differently received if it's not brought up by the same person over and over again, right? Like Sheldon, if everyone is committed in the outcome and wanting a really good to say, oh, let's pause, while other people are like, let's charge forward, having all that energy together, needs some of that candidness and honesty to be able to say, how do we create something new? How do we build this vision together, and how do we do it together? So I want to go back to you all just for a second. Any thoughts? Just what comes to mind? I think some of the most powerful things come from the stories that you all share. So any teams out there, any groups where you saw aspects of this work really well? Feel free to just come off of mute. That first one's always the hardest.
Can you repeat the question?
Yeah. So have you ever been part of a team or a group? Maybe it was a youth group, maybe it was a high school job, maybe it was your third grade class when you were learning about the solar system, whatever it was. Were there groups that you were a part of who had some of these qualities, and what were those? Just a little story sharing. Thanks, V, for that clarification.
I feel like in high school, one of mine, a quality that's been shown is trust. I feel like trust is a really big one. It was for our senior project, but also I'd been working for my art class. I'd been working with the same people since freshman year. So it's like we already developed like that trust and that connection and stuff like that. And we always trusted the other person to finish on time and like get everything done and all that stuff. So I feel like that was the main one.
Yeah. How did it turn out? Can I ask?
It turned out really good. So we didn't place first, but we placed second.
And the work and the effort that you put into it, right? The outcome might have even looked different than even individually you could have seen in your mind, but working together. V, that's a perfect example. Thank you so much.
No problem.
All right, let's get one more out there. Adam, I saw you come off mute.
Yeah, I really want to go because I love my example.
Do it.
So last summer, which now feels like such a long time ago, I was fortunate enough and very happy to be an orientation leader for CSU. And that team was just like very shared vision. Like definitely it was all about like providing students a meaningful transition from, you know, high school and life at home to whatever that might look like in college. Like I know some students would still live at home, and they would go to CSU, and like some students were like coming from all the way across the other side of the world. So like just like helping, like everybody was just on the same page with that, you know, and it was just so cool to like see everybody on the team come together. And things were always fun. So like those two, it was just always fun. It was always lighthearted. So that was definitely collaboration. That was just beautiful.
That's awesome. And such a great example. I think what's really important about that too is that, you know, you talked about orientation leader, and we now know, I don't know if you all have heard, but there's exploration of orientation going online for the summer. And so now there's this, how do we create an experience that's anywhere similar to maybe that in-person bond that you all were able to have? And it's a big ask, right? We're in these really difficult times, and some of us might be thanking ourselves that we've already gone through the orientation project program, so like we can be grateful for where we are. And for those upcoming first-year students, how do we get them to feel some of that RAM spirit the way that your team was able to? Adam, that was a great example, and allows us to start looking at like, what can we do in the near and coming future? And that's a lot of leadership that's going to be required. Thanks, Adam. So these 7 components of collaboration are all those right topics that make collaboration possible, to have that shared vision, to create something new with multiple people working together. One of my mentors, this was the past director of the President's Leadership Program. She now works at Dartmouth. She was my supervisor in grad school. One of the things that she said to me that stuck with me consistently: start with the end in mind and work backwards. And I believe that you can do that with a team as well. if you start with that shared vision, that maybe it's the vision looks different in what's provided or produced, maybe that deliverable does look different, but you have a vision of where you want to go or how you want to go together. You start with that end in mind and work backwards. This is also really good when I get hot-headed and I'm frustrated and I'm like, oh, I just want to like yell and get frustrated. I start with the end in mind and say, is this the relationship that I want to maintain? How can I work backwards from that? How can I approach this? How would I like to be approached? How would they like to be approached? And having those considerations is helpful with that candor and honesty part of it too. So this is kind of the crux, right? This is where we'll spend the last 5 or 6 minutes in the tips towards collaboration. Hopefully you can see all of those. So again, we want to start with the end in mind and create that end together. I'm going to close the door. So we want to start with that end in mind that we've created together. We want to agree upon deadlines. Whatever structure we create, whether that's flexible or not, do you have a buffer or not, what will work for folks, and checking in with folks to say, right, this is your time, what can be, and as much as you invite multiple people's voices in, then you co-create and you collaborate that together. You share experiences. This is some of the, maybe it's not, you know, my partner is in the grad program in industrial hygiene, and she has a group and team that she collaborates with a lot, and they do research together, but they also go and have shared experiences outside of class together, where they share stories and they speak and talk their industrial hygiene talk and lingo that I'm not a part of, but they have these shared experiences where they build trust and they build relationship, so that when they need to address things when something isn't working, they have some of that built relationship to be able to do. So if you hang out together, and again, not a requirement, but it can make some of these helpful, right? You can address when something isn't working. You can push the pause button. You can ask questions and really listen to each other. That listening to each other is really key. Oftentimes, I'm listening with an end in mind already. I'm working on the response that I have. I'm like, cool, but now I want to say, right? Folks who prefer introversion, I would say, might have some strengths and skills in some of this listening area, right? To really consider what people are saying and put those pieces of the puzzle together and say, well, this is what I'm hearing. Does this make sense for us, right? Asking those questions and listening to each other. Pausing for feedback throughout the process. And I would say that within that flexible schedule, or structure, excuse me, that you put in places to request feedback. I would say that a collaborative household where you're building a shared vision of community together, maybe something that you've never experienced before, maybe it's new for you. You come together, you have those roommate expectation conversations of who's going to take out the trash and who's going to pay the bills, or we're going to split it 3 ways, or we each going to take one. What are those things? And then what does it look like to have a once a month meeting together where you have a meal maybe and you say, okay, what's working, what's not, right? You have structured in, and even if you don't need it, it's already built in group projects, in teamworks, right? With staff meetings or one-on-ones and evaluations, that it's already there. So it's not like you have to put a lot of energy into like pumping the brakes when you need to. How do you pause, and how do you put in structured pauses to ask the what's working and what's not? What can we put energy towards, and what do we need to remove some energy from? I think one of the most important things is celebrating together too, right? I love V's example about the final art project, and maybe there wasn't first, but you got second place. I didn't even know it was, there was a competitive aspect to it. It just felt so much pride in the ways that you were talking about it, in what was produced and provided, and celebrating that together as your final, as your kind of final cumulative experience of high school together. So all the way from start to celebrating together, you kind of see how you go through processes. And if you have a little bit of structure that's flexible enough, if you address when things aren't working, if you infuse communication through asking questions and listening to people while pausing for feedback, then ideally the celebration around that outcome that you didn't even realize was possible can happen. So here we come to our final question. what behaviors or tips based on what we just talked about could you implement in your next group, team, or staff? Maybe it's more around creating expectations for each other, collaboratively and together. Maybe it's around considering that job description, and do I want something that could be more creative and collaborative, or do I want just something that's already done, right? Maybe it's even before you join that team. But what behaviors or tips could you implement in the next group, team, or staff that you're a part of? Hopefully, maybe it's the staff that you're a part of now in the upcoming year. If you're in our Managing Up workshop, we talked a little bit about how to manage up your supervisors. I'll wait for a couple more to come in before I start reading. Awesome. So always remembering to check in with each other, explicitly creating and stating our team's end goal at the beginning, yes, and throughout, right? Continuing that check-in process, share experiences, hang out together, starting off on the same page with everyone in the group and making sure we have that shared vision to create something new and making sure everyone's voice gets heard. That's so important, and holding myself accountable to what I have to do. Woo! That is some good discipline demonstrated right there. I often need Rachel to be my accountability buddy. I like to think that I can hold myself accountable, and sometimes people need, I can't, she's like, you can. But sometimes it's helpful to check in with people and make sure no one is left out. That's so powerful. When we feel affirmed and welcomed and included in the process, when we feel bought in and that we have ownership, we all feel like we're part of it and want to move it forward. And it takes a lot off of the shoulders of someone who might feel like they have so much responsibility for something, to divide that together and to share that outcome is really powerful. Thanks to all of you for everything that you have brought to this, for your perspectives, for your stories. Hopefully you learned a little bit. These are some of the references I used, not in APA format. I apologize. I feel my communication professor coming down on me hard. And thank you. This is the attendance link. I or Rachel will put it in the chat bar. Please make sure to fill out that attendance link so we know who all was here and we can share it with your supervisor. And I'm really, really committed. We will have 2 more weeks of this after this, so we'll have 2 more workshops. One, we're going to be talking about bringing your skills, your job skills from campus into your resume and job searches as you continue on. And then another one is optimizing your online experiences. I'm really, really grateful to folks who have been at the real workshops and who have been at these, and we want to commend and recognize and compensate you in some ways. So we're considering how to do that in the future. So thank you. Rachel, did you help me out with that link? Thank you so much. And we will see you next time. Feel free to come off mute if you have questions before you say bye. Anything I'm missing? Great. All right. Well, that's that then. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Bye. Thank you so much.